Welcome back. Today, we are looking at a specific Christ Academy article that tackles one of the most debated topics in modern theology: Christ's authority over physical disease. When examining divine intervention, believers often fall into one of two extremes. The first assumes that God is obligated to heal every physical sickness, provided the suffering person has enough faith. This view places humanity in the position of sovereignty. By asserting that human faith dictates the outcome, it functionally reduces God to a servant who is bound to carry out our demands. In reaction to that, others adopt a deistic restriction. This view claims that God no longer directly intervenes in the physical realities of the human body, leaving our health entirely up to natural processes. To move past these extremes, we need to let the Bible speak for itself. We can do that by extracting 5 key principles from the 3 rapid-fire healings recorded in Matthew chapter 8. Getting this right is crucial. Misunderstanding how Christ exercises his authority over disease will lead you into deep spiritual disillusionment when a healing doesn't happen, or cause you to functionally deny the active power of the Creator in your daily life. The historical context for these healings is set immediately following the Sermon on the Mount, as Jesus enters the city of Capernaum. This brings us to the first principle of his authority: sovereignty. A man covered in leprosy approaches Jesus with a very specific appeal. He says, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." The leper recognized a core theological reality. God's sovereignty is his absolute freedom to act for his own purposes and glory, completely independent of human presumption. Notice the role faith plays here. The man's faith is strong, but it does not manipulate or corner God. Instead, biblical faith humbly accesses God's presence and ultimately submits to his sovereign choice. The second principle, positional authority, is revealed in the very next encounter. A Roman centurion approaches Jesus, pleading for his paralyzed servant. When Jesus offers to come to his home, the centurion stops him. As a military man, he knew true authority doesn't require physical proximity. A command given from a place of supreme position guarantees execution, whether the commander is in the room or not. Jesus heals from a distance due to his ontological position as creator and sustainer of the universe. Because Christ holds creation together at a molecular level, he can speak a word to instantaneously reorder biology, altering the environment he designed without being physically present. True biblical faith holds both of these truths together. It requires recognizing Christ's absolute position over the physical universe, while completely submitting to his sovereign choice in how he manages it. This interaction also establishes the third principle, impartiality. Jesus marvels at the centurion, noting that he had not found such great faith anywhere within covenant Israel. By praising a Roman Gentile, Jesus offers a preview of the coming global kingdom. His restorative authority bypasses ethnic and national boundaries to include believers from all nations. The fourth principle, absolute power, is demonstrated in the third healing of the evening, when Jesus visits Peter's house and finds his mother-in-law sick with a fever. The text notes that as soon as Jesus touched her hand, she immediately arose and served him. This detail proves that divine healing is entirely complete, leaving zero lingering weakness or need for a convalescence period. Look at the sheer variety of methods Jesus used in just these 3 accounts. He touched and spoke to the leper, he spoke a word from afar for the servant, and he silently touched the mother-in-law. God may use immediate intervention, distant commands, or progressive methods over time through doctors and medication. Regardless of the mechanism, the underlying power driving the restoration is entirely his. Christ's power is never limited by the severity of biological decay, geographical distance, or a person's background. His authority over disease is truly absolute. We find our fifth and final principle, prophecy, in Matthew's theological summary of the mass healings that took place later that evening in Capernaum. To explain the mechanism behind these miracles, Matthew directly quotes the Old Testament. He points to Isaiah 53, establishing that the Messiah took up our infirmities and carried our diseases as a direct part of his substitutionary atonement. This raises a difficult theological question. If Christ purchased our physical healing on the cross, why do faithful believers still get sick, suffer, and die? The answer lies in understanding an eschatological foretaste. A foretaste is a localized, temporary preview of a future, permanent reality. While Christ's death on the cross guarantees the ultimate eradication of all disease for the believer, the full application of that physical restoration is reserved for the future, resurrected kingdom. The healings in Matthew 8 functioned primarily to validate Jesus as the true Messiah. They were never intended to establish a universal guarantee of physical immunity for believers living in the current church age. A sickness-free eternity is guaranteed by the cross, but physical healing in the present age remains a sovereign exception. When God does heal today, it is meant to serve as a signpost, pointing us toward the glory of that coming kingdom. So, how do believers practically access Christ's restorative authority today, prior to the establishment of the earthly kingdom? For that, we turn to the specific instructions given to the local church in James chapter 5. James directs anyone who is sick to call for the elders of the church. But looking closely at the Greek text, the word for sick here is astheneo, which translates literally to weak. This biblical definition extends far beyond medical ailments, covering physical illness, emotional exhaustion, and spiritual weakness. The text requires the suffering person to initiate contact by calling the elders. Because Jesus is no longer physically present on earth, going to the elders is how a believer demonstrates active faith and submission to Christ's organizational structure. James instructs the elders to pray and anoint the sick person with oil. To understand this correctly, we have to strip away the mystical connotations often assigned to this practice. In the ancient world, oil was a tangible symbol of grooming and refreshment. Anointing someone is a physical, face-to-face demonstration of care from Christ, mediated directly through his local representatives. Pay close attention to the specific wording in James 5. It promises that the prayer face will restore or raise up the one who is weak, but it doesn't promise a universal medical cure. Restoration, in this sense, is about God providing the specific strength needed for a believer's situation. To visualize the different ways God sovereignly applies this strength, we can look to the three-tiered imagery found in Isaiah 40:31. The prophet describes how those who wait on the Lord will have their strength renewed, categorized by three distinct speeds of restoration: soaring, running, and walking. The first tier is soaring like eagles. This represents the immediate, miraculous physical restoration, where a believer is delivered entirely from their sickbed. But restoration also includes running without tiring, receiving supernatural strength to endure a trial, and walking without fainting, which is the baseline spiritual survival and comfort provided in the midst of permanent physical decline. True faith does not demand a specific physical outcome. Instead, it trusts the Creator's sovereign authority. By submitting to His design, we find guaranteed spiritual restoration within the local church, while confidently awaiting the ultimate physical healing of the resurrection.